In a quiet village, where time seemed to move slower than the rustling autumn leaves, there lived an old man named Bernard. Once, he had been a lively soul, his laughter filling the halls of his little cottage. But years had passed, and loneliness had crept into his bones like the cold of an unlit hearth. His wife had been gone for many winters, his children grown and far away. His days were spent in silence, his only company the ticking of the ancient grandfather clock in his sitting room. One rainy evening, as Bernard pulled his thick wool coat tighter around his frail shoulders, he heard a soft mewling outside his door. At first he ignored it. What business did he have with stray creatures? But the cries were persistent, gentle yet pleading. When he finally opened the door, there, on the stone doorstep, sat a thin, shivering cat. Its fur was tangled, its eyes wide and luminous, reflecting the light of Bernard's lantern like twin golden moons. Bernard frowned. "Go on, then," he muttered, shooing the creature the half-hearted wave. But the cat did not leave. Instead, it curled its tail around its paws and blinked up at him expectantly. Something about its quiet patience stirred something in Bernard's chest. Against his better judgment, he sighed and stepped aside. "Well, if you're coming in, wipe your paws," he said gruffly. The cat, of course, did no such thing, but it padded inside anyway, curling up by the warm hearth as if it had always belonged there. At first, Bernard insisted the cat was not staying. "I don't have the time," he muttered to himself, "and I certainly don't need company." But the cat stayed. Every morning it sat by the window, waiting for him to wake up. Every afternoon it followed him as he fetched firewood. Every evening it curled up at his feet, its purring a steady rhythmic lull that filled the empty silence. Bernard found himself talking to it about the weather, about the village gossip he heard when he went to buy bread, about things he had not spoken of in years. And though the cat never spoke back, its golden eyes seemed to listen. Seasons changed, and with them, Bernard changed too. He began leaving out a small bowl of milk without thinking. He grumbled less when the cat jumped onto his lap. One day, he even caught himself whistling while he stirred a pot of stew. He hadn't whistled in years. Then, one fateful evening, as a terrible storm raged outside, Bernard realized the cat was gone. Panic gripped his chest. He searched every corner of the house, called into the howling wind, but there was no sign of the little creature that had come to mean so much. For the first time in a long time, Bernard felt the ache of loss. But this time, it was not the loss of something past. It was the fear of losing something he still had. In that moment, Bernard understood. He loved that cat, and he did not want to be alone anymore. Just as despair threatened to take hold, a familiar meow cut through the night. Bernard turned, and there, soaked but safe, was his little companion. Without hesitation, he scooped the cat up into his arms. "You foolish thing," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "You scared me." The cat only purred, nuzzling into his coat. From that day on, Bernard was never alone again. He had thought he was rescuing a stray, but in truth, it was the stray that had rescued him. Love has a way of finding us, even when we think we have closed our hearts to it. And sometimes, the gentlest souls teach us the most profound lessons, not with words, but with quiet companionship. And so, under the warm glow of the hearth, with a contented cat curled up beside him, the old man finally understood. Love never truly leaves us. It only waits to be found again.